Yeah, so for the last year and a half since they announced the Fox deal and made it clear they were going to make a big push into streaming video, the foremost question on everyone's minds has been how much is this going to cost in the near term? How is this going to hurt earnings in the near term to get to what will hopefully be a better business in the long term? I think tomorrow we're going to find out a lot of those answers. They've made it clear they intend to discuss their streaming plans in some detail. Once those answers are known, whether they're sort of good, bad, or indifferent, they're known and they're no longer a question mark, and you can start to focus on some other things like the extremely loaded content slate Disney's going to have for the next year.
Doug, it's interesting how, there's been this brightening of the mood on Wall Street toward the Disney story following the Fox deal. And it almost seems as if it's really more a matter of what investors can now emphasize and focus on, right? Because essentially, ESPN is now an even smaller piece of the company in terms of earnings and revenue. And you actually have about flat earnings expected for the overall company for the next year or two. And yet it's going to be all about, exactly what direct-to-consumer does and what the studio does. So do you think that that's going to actually be a winning way of viewing this stock? Can the stock perform in a flat earnings environment just because of progress on those other fronts?
Yeah, narratives drive stocks, and after the information we get tomorrow, the narrative is going to be they're investing all this money in direct-to-consumer, and it's going to give the company a really bright future. Whether or not that actually turns out to be the case in the near term is almost irrelevant. It's people are going to say that, and the news, I think, again with this content slate they have with the movies, Avengers, Star Wars, Frozen, Star Wars things at the theme parks. That's all going to be good news. They're going to launch the Disney Plus service. I suspect it will get off to a very strong start because of how powerful their brand is. And so you can kind of look through the near-term flattish earnings to, what people will argue is a much better earnings position in 3, 4, 5 years.
Doug, we were just talking about the new Avengers movie that's coming out and all the early ticket sales records that have been broken by this. And then we were recalling, I guess you could say, when Disney bought Marvel for $4 billion and the fact that the market was so skeptical about that move at the time. At this rate, you think it's safe to say that it was a really smart bet?
It may have been the best deal in the history of entertainment. I mean, they have done a phenomenal job, and I think a lot of the credit goes to the fact that Kevin Feige and his team of Marvel have managed to churn out an almost uninterrupted stream of great movies. Had the movies come out and been sort of not very good, if you had some Fantastic Fours in there or X-Men Wolverine's Origins in there and they hadn't been good and hadn't done well, we'd be singing a very different song. But man, they've gotten great casts, they've gotten great directors, they've gotten great scripts, and have really just executed magnificently, and they deserve a lot of credit for that.